Welcome everyone to the first episode of On the Field podcast of 2025. It has been a little while since we have been on this, been in this meeting room here at the office in Newmarket, but we thought we'll start off with a bang. We got Tay Hawker here, who's kindly given some time for us today. Just a bit of a background on Tay. Tay is a pro agent. He's worked a lot in the commercial space with professional athletes, but spent a hell of amount of time in the US working at different universities. He's a rugby player. He's from the mighty Wanganui. Tay, thank you for being here, mate. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thanks very much for having me. Appreciate it.
Bro, so tell us your story. Give us a little, for people that don't know you, give us a little sneak peek into who Tay Hawker is.
I'll give the quick notes. My background was born in Auckland, raised between Southeast Asia and then down in Wanganui for the majority of my life. Went to Wanganui Collegiate, and then when I was just turned 18, went over and went to Lindenwood University and played rugby over there. Did my undergrad there, bachelor's in sports management with a couple of minors. Went on, worked for a little bit, and we can go into, I'm sure the detail will come up throughout, but went and got my master's in sports law from Arizona State University. Wasn't a student athlete there, just worked in the athletic department. Following that I actually graduated in the COVID year in 2020, and then worked in the NCAA for a little bit, student athlete development predominantly, and then started my own agency, sold that, came back home, became a Kiwi again after 12 years away.
Good man.
And now I'm down here representing professional athletes.
Awesome, man. So when I was younger, I thought pro agents were like the bee's knees. You see Jerry Maguire and all those kind of guys in the movies. What does a pro agent actually do?
Yeah, it's quite different to Jerry Maguire. I haven't yelled, "Show me the money" over the phone yet. But essentially, the long and short of it is that we negotiate the playing and commercial contracts for professional athletes. The long of it is there's a lot more services that can be provided surrounding education, concierge services, etc. But the core function of the job is negotiating the playing and marketing contracts for the athletes.
That's awesome, man. So how long have you been a pro agent for, and are there certain licenses that you need to earn before you can become a pro agent?
Yes. So that's a complex one, given that there's so many sports out there, and each sport has different governing bodies that require different registrations and certifications, etc. I've been representing pro athletes now, essentially since COVID 2020, and then working with athletes for a long time before that. But yeah, it's hard to answer that one. It's a controversial topic in a lot of sports because agents naturally, in some sports there are low, like currently in college, there's a low barrier to entry to becoming an agent. Therefore, there's a lot of rogue agents out there. In my ones, particularly in rugby, there's an accreditation process, so you actually have to be an agent before you can become accredited, which is interesting. And then FIFA requires an exam. The NFL requires an exam, a registration process, and a higher ed degree, whether that be a master's or a law degree. So it varies across leagues and sports and everything.
Awesome, man. We're going to get back to life as a pro agent very soon. But before we go there, you were a student athlete in America. You played a bit of rugby back in the day as well. I mean, we live in a country where rugby is probably one of our strongest sports, and we have stamped our mark on a global stage as well. Why did you want to go out of all places to America to play rugby?
Yeah, I wasn't as good as I wanted to be. I say that because, as you touched on, New Zealand's an incredible place to play rugby. So this is always the goal growing up, is always to be an All Black. You know, you go as far as you can in the New Zealand pipeline. And I was, thrown in and out of Hurricanes Academy things, competitions and all that sort of stuff. But I knew that it wasn't going to be my path in New Zealand. And to be really candid with you, my goal since I was very little was to work in sport. Sport, as a lot of people in my circle can attest to, is one of those things where if it's your passion for long enough, which sport often is, you kind of like, how do I make this my forever? So I was very young. I actually joked with my dad recently there's a memory he's got of seeing me playing David Beckham soccer on the PlayStation 1, and I barely played any soccer because I had this fascination with like creating the perfect team, and so I spent more time in team management than I ever did actually on the field. And so I've always been interested in the personnel side and the sports business. So actually, to answer it in a shorter way, I went over there for my career, and rugby was sort of the vessel to get me over there.
Awesome. How was it going over there, and did you have a lot of support to help you get over there, or were you kind of like, you know what, I want to do this, it's something that I've seen online, I'm just going to give it a crack and see what happens?
Yeah, I was hell-bent on going. Nothing was going to stop me. And so my parents were an incredible help, and the philosophy that they had was actually the best thing that they could have ever done for me. And my dad is essentially the one that said it was, if you want to go to the States, you're on your own. And what he meant by that was, you've kind of got to prove to us that you want it bad enough. So I had to do all the research, figure out what scholarships look like, learn what exams I had to do, go and study for those exams on top of NCEA, and I was hell-bent on making it happen. And as a result, once I got there, I felt that I had put in so much work to be there that nothing was going to stop me from making it the best experience that I could ever do. Whereas I feel like if my parents had kind of babied me through the entire process and pushed me out the door, I would be over there wondering whether it was my dream or not. Doing it my way, I knew it was my dream because my parents were like, good luck, figure it out. And as a result, they've supported me once I was there, and they've been my biggest fans. So huge credit, but they wanted to see it come from me.
How was the adjustment period being away from home? I mean, Wanganui is quite far away from the US. Yeah. How was it being there? Did you ever feel moments where you got a little bit homesick? And if you did, how did you overcome those?
Yeah, I don't know if it was because I was particularly independent, but I never really got homesick. I was spoiled because you go straight into a team environment, and so you've kind of got a family as soon as you touch down on campus. I imagine if you went just as a regular student, it'd be a little bit harder to find your community, but I landed in St. Louis, and one of my teammates, the coach greeted us, but one of the teammates ended up picking me up probably 30 minutes after we had landed. I also went over there with a guy from King's College here in Auckland, and that was nice to have a Kiwi with me as well, but the team basically just put their arms around you. And I still, to this day, the only time I ever felt homesick over there was when my dog passed away, and I felt like I was a million miles away from home, but that was it. Other than that, I really didn't feel homesick at all.
Yeah, I've been in that position, man. I was overseas and my family all passed away. It sucks.
Sucks.
Absolutely sucks. Yeah. But, I mean, it's the people around you that kind of support you through moments like that.
Yeah.
Fast tracking into America, you're playing rugby, and then you graduate. What did you graduate with?
My undergrad was sports management major, and then minors in marketing and political science.
So you do 4 years at your college, and then did you do your OPT?
Yeah, I've done all the visas. So I did a CPT while I was studying with the St. Louis Rams, and then I got one OPT when I finished my undergrad and another OPT after my master's, and a CPT during my master's too.
How difficult is it to get these types of visas?
CPT and OPT is easy. You've sort of pre-qualified if you've hit all the markers, which means studying and graduated from a US institution, etc. H1B was a difficult one to get, and then there's countless other visas, but those were I should explain. The F1 visa was what I was on, and the OPT and the CPT are sort of addendums to an F1 that allows you to work under certain stipulations.
Awesome, man. Fantastic. So you graduated your time at Arizona. Was it Arizona State you finished your degree, or was it at Lindenwood?
Lindenwood was my bachelor's,
yeah,
and then Arizona State was my master's.
Awesome. What's their logo at Arizona State?
Sun Devils.
There
the
you
pitchfork.
go.
Yep.
Yeah, the tennis coach reached out to me recently. I'm yet to send a tennis player there, man.
Well, you got to.
Time is ticking.
We need to create the pipeline. New Zealand Sun Devils.
We've got a water polo athlete there.
Yeah,
we've got a water polo.
There's quite a few. There has been Kiwis there. A lot of Aussies as well. But yeah.
Nah, for sure, man.
I'm biased.
Oh, for sure. You have to be.
Yeah.
Especially in college. Okay, so then you finish your degree. Now you're working at universities. You have this goal that since you're a kid to be working in the sports industry. When did you make the decision that you wanted to be a pro agent?
That came around the start of what is name, image, and likeness within the NCAA. Originally, I wanted to be an AD, or athletic director was the goal. Once I started working within college athletics, I was like, this is incredible. I loved helping young athletes to create lives for themselves through using sport as the vessel. And then when changes were coming in college athletics, I sort of saw the opportunity to help athletes that way. Both of my parents are entrepreneurs. I've kind of always had that entrepreneur bug in me. And so myself and a couple of mates from the sports world all over the country sort of banded together and created a solution for college athletes to help maximize not just their brand, but the commercial benefits of having a brand. So went away and started an agency there, and then quickly became a pro agent after that. I won't get into the depths of the economics of it all, but there's still large value in the pro side as well.
So back in the day when you were playing, NIL wasn't really a thing. Oh, now I've spoken on a podcast last year about NIL, but I think you're way more qualified to speak on this than I am. Can you just tell people what the NIL means and how has the college landscape changed for all student athletes now?
Yeah, so before July 1st of 2021, amateurism was heavily protected in the NCAA, which essentially means they were not able to make any monetary benefits, financial benefits for playing their sport. As of July 1 in 2021, that changed, and they are now able to make, within a level of restrictions, they're able to make money off their brand, their name, their image, and their likeness. That essentially is the same. In the pro world, it's just considered sponsorships and endorsements. However, they're still unable until there's a lot going on right now, but as of right now, they can't make money off their ability to play on the field. There's been a handful of lawsuits, the most famous being House vs NCAA, that is potentially going to be approved in April, and therefore later this year, revenue sharing would be happening in the NCAA. Where that is going to make colleges land, we don't really know. There's a lot of recommendations going around at the moment, so we'll see.
It's a crazy time, man, because I've been doing this now for 10 years, so I've seen how it was done the old school kind of way, and now it's like athletes can not only get a full scholarship, but can earn a substantial amount of money on top of that in endorsement deals. I had a conversation with a coach from Australia yesterday, and he said, there's a university that's offered my athlete over $50,000 US a year to go play. That sounds fantastic. What does this mean for international students?
Yeah, I mean, that's the complex part of it, isn't it? So, as of right now, all I can speak on is the facts and the legalities. And the facts are that on an F1 visa without CPT and OPT, you're unable to make money through any other form but passive income. Therefore, international student athletes are currently being sort of left out in the lurch of all of this. So right now, they're unable to make money off their NIL. That's the hard facts of it. Now, many athletes do qualify for P and O visas, so professional and extraordinary talent visas. P visas have quite a range of limitations on the sponsorships and endorsements you can do, whereas O is a lot more expansive. O is a little bit harder to get. And so right now, it's not great for international athletes. There is a high chance that if it needs to change, it will change as history goes down. But where we can potentially run into major issues is later on in the year, if revenue sharing does come to fruition, international athletes will essentially need to figure out a way that they can be a part of that, because there could be major issues if they're not included in that. A small stipulation as well, on an F1 visa you are able to be employed on campus employment, and there's a lot of opinions out there on whether being a student athlete is included in that, and therefore there's no issue. I'm not an immigration lawyer and I'm not in a position to say my opinion legally on it, so I don't know where it's going to shake out. But as of right now, it's a sort of an ongoing process. So you've got to be careful, is sort of my advice. I've got friends in the game and immigration lawyers that are heavily involved, and their advice is always just don't get involved. But after revenue sharing, it's going to make too much of a seismic shift on the industry to say that, because there's roughly 25,000 international student athletes throughout the NCAA. So something's got to shake, but it's an interesting time for international athletes.
Interesting time indeed. Only time will tell which way it can go for student athletes. Now, eventually,
Yep.
international athletes will be able to hopefully get their hands on some of this NIL money.
Yep.
How important today is personal branding for
Yeah.
athletes?
Yeah, I think to kind of tie that off, certainly don't want to sound pessimistic. And like I said, with that many student athletes in the States, they're going to have to figure it out, because what would happen in the NCAA if you took out international athletes just simply isn't feasible. The best example I can use, if you go back and watch the Paris Olympics and identify how many athletes, non-American, are former NCAA athletes, I don't know the percentage, but it certainly is majority, has touched an NCAA institution before becoming an Olympic athlete for their respective countries. So there's the desire and need there that it's going to happen, and we just don't know how it's going to shake out. So to answer your question on personal brand, I mean, it's everything, isn't it? It can be your opportunity to make money off the field, which is massive, and it can be your opportunity to be seen on the field if you've already got a brand and if people are already talking about you. So I'm obviously very bullish on athletes making their personal brand and doing all of that. The asterisk that I always put in is that brand also needs to be incredibly authentic. It needs to be authentic, or else you get seen through. And so if it isn't you, if you can't do it, if you don't feel like it's authentic, I definitely don't encourage making non-authentic brands, but it's so important and you've got to be in the game.
Times have changed. Like, we signed, I want to give this kid a shout out, Harry Matson from New Plymouth. Yep. He's a great young man. He's still got a few years of high school to go before he goes to America. He's on Instagram. He's posting videos of him playing at the golf course, hitting out of a bunker. And he was doing that before he started working with me. And there's kids that are making this initiative because they know it can open up doors going forward. And I think the biggest thing that athletes are feeling uncomfortable about is putting themselves out there because they feel like they're going to get made fun of by their peers. Yeah. But what would be your message to, let's say, a younger version of yourself that's in Wanganui wanting to go to the States? What kind of advice would you give to an athlete in that situation? Yeah,
it's so hard. I've got a vile hatred for the tall poppy syndrome. So I've seen it. I work with athletes. I see it every day. I think the biggest thing to keep in mind is that nobody ever punches down. And what I mean by that is you don't see anyone that's absolutely crushing it in life worrying about someone under them and naming and shaming people, which leaves you leaves you with the fact that if someone is trying to belittle you or make fun of you or make you feel less of them because you're putting yourself out there, there's a good chance it's because they're trying to come up at you. And so it's the hardest thing to do and to try to ignore a lot of the jokes that you get if you make a video that doesn't hit. I think the best advice is that when it works, you won't be thinking about them. They won't cross your mind. And I think like if your friends are making fun of you by posting content that you're trying to use as a way to elevate your game and elevate opportunities, are probably not your friends. 100%.
And it's probably cut them out of your circle pretty quick. Yep. And I mean, I went through something like that back in the day, like when I started Platform Sports. When I was 22 years old, man, I'd post some content and some of the boys were like, oh, look at this guy. And I was like, see ya. Like, carried on my own mission. You just got to put yourself out there. And I feel when a brand is looking to engage in an athlete, they're trying to see, well, what's this person's character? How hard are they willing to do? And if there's a content catalog on Instagram of them just posting a day in a life video or gym workouts or hustling out there, surely that's something that a sponsor would want to get involved with, right? Yeah, so I use the build it and they will come model, and essentially what that is athletes need to start making the content today, building out what their strategy is going to be, and create something that brands actually want to come and work with. And I think that's where some athletes will come to me and say, oh yeah, I want to start working with brands, and they simply don't have something that brands would want to engage with. And so there's two parts to that. Brands want to obviously work with as many eyes as they can get to. So if you've got your followers and a community around those, and a high engagement rate, which means a community that wants to engage with you, your content and you as a person, that's part one. And then part two is sort of making brands see where they can fit into your content already. So as you mentioned, a day in life video, for example, you want brands to be able to look at that content and say, oh, perfect, they could do a quick ad there for me, or talk about why my
hydration product works best. You know what I mean? They want to be able to picture themselves in your content already. If you're making them work even harder by going away and using their own imagination, you're just giving yourself a slightly lesser chance to get those brand deals and everything. So that's sort of, pro tip one is just like get into it. If you try to start with the ads and try to start with brands wanting to work with you, it's simply not it's either not gonna work, or you're gonna get brands that you don't really want to be working with in the first place, and they might throw you a t-shirt to make a video, and it's like, is that the best value, bang for buck? You know what I mean? So
yeah, for sure. Are there any red flags that athletes listening to this and parents listening to this they should be aware about, like things not to post?
Oh yeah, there's a long list of those. Don't be silly, obviously.
Don't post after 10 p.m.
Yeah, that's a good rule. My advice, I suppose, around that is consider having, I will say out the gate that building a brand is way bigger than social media. Their social media is a part of developing a brand. But to hone in on social media, definitely don't post after 10. Try to keep, illicit substances and pictures and things like that away from the internet.
Yeah, like these kids are going to festivals before they go to America. Drinking age in America is 21. Are you saying no alcohol in photos?
Well, you play the cost price analysis game. Is it worth it? What benefit are you getting out of posting it? If it's, and I'll go on a tangent here, but bear with me. If it's to look cool for friends, or like, no, it's not even that. I know it's not that. They post it because everyone else says it's not that big of a deal. I get it. But at that time, you're posting for your friends, right? Which is fine. That's what most people use social media for. The unfortunate nature of developing a brand as a professional athlete is that you don't post for your friends anymore. You post for your fans if you don't have massive fans yet, but you post for people that are going to engage with you because of your ability as an athlete. And so you're no longer posting your rhythm pictures because your mates are all posting them too. That's fine. My advice for those, the kids that struggle with to differentiate that, is just start a Finsta or a private account that's just for you and your mates and your family or whatever, and then have an account that you use to grow your your athletic side, and keep it relatively clean. And even it doesn't even need to be clean. Like, there's a lot of athletes out there that their brand might be that they're witty or funny or a little bit edgy. Like, it doesn't need to. Your brand is going to be your brand. But what I would say is that you don't want to be creating content for your friends anymore. It could be creating content for people like your friends, but you got to look outside of that circuit now. So that circle now. So yeah, I would definitely be on. You don't go out of your way to be posting booze and things like that. There's definitely, like you said, there'll be college coaches that goes, there's going to be trouble. And at the end of the day, like I said, what's the cost price analysis on it? You're more likely going to have more benefit by just keeping it off there. And if it is because if you are posting it just to look cool, then you got bigger issues there.
Oh, for sure. Like, I've seen a few athletes that are actually in college on pretty good deals, and they'll post sliders, and as you scroll across, you might see, they're drinking a beer. And in New Zealand, that's normal. When you're like around 18 years old. It's kind of like the drinking age over here, the culture here, I guess, in a way. But I think bigger brands that want to take their checkbook out and put their hand in their pocket, it will turn them off very, very quickly. Have you had any, obviously you don't have to go into detail with your confidentiality relationships with your athletes, but have you had any situations where you're at night, at home, checking someone's Instagram that you're managing, and you're like, oh my gosh, I have to give this rooster a call right now?
Yeah, fortunately I can say that 99% of my athletes are awesome and haven't had any major issues. I see it a lot more. It's funny you mentioned the culture here. I see it a lot more with my rugby clients that post stuff that I'm just like, why? What's the benefit here? Why? Who's winning? On the more of like the drinking side of things, I think I see it more from the high school kids wanting to go over to the States, where coaches are never going to, put it this way, coaches are never going to see you, doing a yard glass or something and be like, that's the kid I want to sign. Like, it's just, that's not going to happen. And so, yeah, I don't have any specific cases, and certainly none that I don't want to throw anyone under the bus, but it's definitely happened. I've come across it, and generally it will be, I never want to be the fun police. But I also know that if my text comes through saying delete that, there's a good chance it makes their stomach drop and they go, oh no, what have I done? And that's quick delete. Like, it's never an argument, but yep, I've definitely had to text clients and say, just get that one out of there.
Unfortunately, I've been put in that position a couple of times where I got a text message from a coach at 3 a.m. and always kept my phone on loud in case I get calls at night. So I checked my phone, and it was from a Division 1 coach, and my athlete had signed with this program, full scholarship, probably valued over 350,000 NZD. And she said, if that photo is not taken down in 24 hours, offer's gone. Because you're associated now with that university, you're representing that university in the States. And I guess that's the way brands see it, right? You're representing my brand, whether it's Vodafone or I love ugly gear. I love ugly clothing. You know, that kind of stuff. It's really important, isn't it?
Yeah, there's a majority of contracts will have some level or some clause to basically state if you bring the brand into disrepute, they'll be able to pull their deal, and in worst cases there can be damages, and so you can wind up in court and things like that. So it can get really serious.
Seems like you know your stuff, Tay. So let's talk about pro agents, because I know there's some great ones out there, but I know there's some ones that I wouldn't touch within a 10-foot pole. Now, what I'm finding is every man and their dog are calling themselves a pro agent. What are the hoops that people need to go through where parents can be like, okay, you are a legit pro agent? How can they identify the good ones?
Yeah, I don't want to come off like I'm virtue signaling by any stretch of the imagination. But what I would say is, there's a handful of things to look for. Obviously, the first, talk to the agent, get to know them. What's the vibe of them? Are they personable enough? The most important thing is your child important to them? Are they a commodity that they're just going to transactionally ship around to whatever team? Or do they care about what team they end up at, and do they care about the process and all that kind of stuff? So do they care? I'd definitely look into the background of, what athletes do they currently have and what level are they at. It's a controversial one. I believe education is important. Have they gone through school? Have they gone through that process? And if not, like I said, is the experience there? Have they done enough transactions, enough contracts? And with that being said, there's good agents that are just getting started out too, but those ones naturally, if they haven't done enough deals, you've got to be relatively cognizant that they might not be able to see all I've been doing it a while, there's mistakes that I've made in my history, and you learn from them and everything, but experience is incredibly important. Mandates or representation agreements are important. In my opinion, I would definitely have a representation agreement. I don't think contracts, I'm an agent, so obviously I'm going to say it, but I think contracts are great. It outlines the relationship between the two. I know my agreements outline what I am going to do for the client and what I expect in return. And it's generally communication, good behavior, all that sort of stuff. And then it outlines commission structures and how much to get paid, how much the agent gets paid. With that as well, I would do plenty of research into understanding if that's fair market value. Obviously for platform clients, I'm always going to be here to bounce ideas off, or if anyone wants to fight, shoot me a question. I'm not in. Again, I won't go down the full rabbit hole, but I'm a Kiwi and I'm a proud Kiwi, and I want to help athletes succeed. And so any other Kiwis in that space, I'm always happy to help. But there's a lot in there just to make sure that there's no bad dealings, because as you said, a lot of people kind of claim they're doing something, or they claim they're an agent, which can be frustrating because I've spent too much time in exam halls to have competition who just shows up one day and says that they're an agent. But it certainly happens.
Yeah, we're getting parents contacting us saying, this pro agent emailed my son. Their son's like 14 years old, 15 years old. Do kids this young need a pro agent? We're talking across different sports here. Or is it based on, okay, if they're top in the country for their sport, or if they have got the ability to represent New Zealand at 16, 17, then it makes sense. Like, how do you sort of identify these athletes when they should be engaging in a pro agent? Yeah,
and I suppose the unfortunate answer is it does depend on the sport, and we could sit here and go sport by sport, and I can give a bit of a layout, but it does depend on sport. You kind of touched on it. If it is an agent is able to help start their career and sign them to a team and anywhere around the world, then maybe there is value to be had there. And it's about understanding your child as well and know whether they're ready for that, both physically and emotionally, if they're ready to take on that journey. I think for the younger ones, even if an agent is unable to do something contractually as far as find them a contract, get them a salary, etc., there is value in having an advisor or someone you trust to be able to explain what lots of things mean, and ward off people. I mean, to use rugby as an example, rugby league and rugby union have two very different structures right now, and so the age that agents will try to get in touch with you varies pretty significantly between the codes. And so having an agent or someone that you trust, which again, going back to the interview process, you want to really get to know the person. And if it's someone that you do like and do trust, there is value in having them around to say, hey, the Bulldogs just reached out and this is the offer, what does this mean? And an agent that can say, this is what it means, this is the other, understand your opportunity cost, what else is out there, do you want to take it? Sometimes it's like, yeah, it's a great deal, jump in. Sometimes I don't want to say often, but there is a good chance that you should probably sit tight and something great will come down the line. And it's not to say one's better than the other. It's just, it's good to have someone in your corner at a younger age. And that might be, like I said, just warding off, explaining, being there. I know for me personally, I often will represent a client for years before making money, quote unquote, or getting a commission. There's a lot of years of advisory and support, and it's sort of not to get too economics about it, but it is sort of that early investment as an agent, and you see something in them, you like the family, you like the client, and it's people you want to support and see them do well. So yeah, there is worth in having an agent, but you do need to vet them appropriately, and you never want to jump into bed with someone that you can't get out of. Now, again, not to ramble, but that is actually another one that I've seen more often than not, actually in the Oceania sort of market, is agents having contracts with athletes that have essentially a term that you are unable to get out of, and that's really concerning. I know for myself and any of the agencies I've ever worked at, you can walk away at any time, no questions asked. Sometimes a week notice, just that doesn't say you can and can't. You just got to have a heads up. That I think that's really important to make sure that any agent you're working with, you can walk away at any time, because you never know what's going to happen. I've just heard so many horror stories of clients saying, "Oh yeah, I want to sign with you, or I want to sign with this agent, but I've still got 9 months left on my contract," and it's like, why are you in that? You know what I mean? So yeah.
And I think it's just they get baited into these opportunities. They get a ring from someone saying, "Hey, we've got this club. It's going to kickstart your pro career. It's amazing. This is the money you're going to be getting. Just sign this contract quick," and they just sign it. But they actually don't know what they're signing. So what you're saying is take a step back, talk to not only the agent and ask them a list of questions, but do your due diligence, find out which other athletes are being represented by them. Do you encourage them to engage in conversations with some of the athletes that have been represented?
I think definitely. Yeah, I'd say reach out. The other thing I'd keep in mind too with that is that everybody's very different, and having an agent is quite a personal sort of relationship. They learn a lot about you, and your personality styles are really important. I'll be the first to say that I'm not the right agent for every athlete, but by any stretch of the imagination. My clients and I click really well. I have been really lucky, and knock on all of the wood for that. But there are clients that don't click with every agent, and so it's worth to make sure you do get on with your agent, and it does. The relationship does make sense, but it isn't, not every agent is for everyone.
For sure. I mean, I've come to you with some situations where some of our athletes that have graduated university from their school and going into the pro system, they've engaged with an agent that does not care about their well-being, opportunities, and they're just waiting for this contract to expire. It's the worst thing ever, man. Yeah. I absolutely hate it. So I think having you on this podcast is brilliant because it's putting a bit more light on this, and pro agencies, there's more and more agents appearing, more pro agents DMing kids on Instagram and through Facebook as well. It's just becoming so common. We're getting every week. Me and William, he's in the Goldie. He would ring me and he'd say, "Hey, one of our guys been contacted by this guy. He's calling himself a pro agent, but he's actually not even listed. He's not even listed, and that's terrifying to know that, because then what will happen is that kids might say, okay, and look, I'm not here to say colleges for everyone. It's not. My little brother had offers and he didn't go. You know, like I'm not about that. But if they take their mind away and their focus away from a good school in the US, and then on the back of this pro agent saying, we can promise you this, and it doesn't come through, then what?
Yeah, then what is not a good situation to be on. If you put all your chips into an agent's basket and then it doesn't show up, then you're in a bad situation. And so to give real advice to that, I would need more context around age and sport and all that kind of stuff. But it's not good. The benefit to the NCAA and going to college in general is it does give you more experience on the field. You come out with a degree and a whole lot older and better as an athlete. I think that's no secret. If you are skipping education to go pro in your given sport, it's a big risk. You better hope it works out.
But no, I appreciate that advice. One thing I got to ask you, do you identify athletes in college that potentially you can work with in the future, or do you have current athletes that you're working with that are in college right now? How does that sort of work? Because I know there's parents and athletes thinking, if I go to college, I'm out of sight, out of mind. I really want to play for an A-League team, or I want to go and get on the ATP tennis tour and I want someone to work with me. Is that things that you can do? Or
yeah, I think it's a good opportunity to kind of differentiate the difference between having a pro agent and a marketing agent, or a playing agent and marketing agent is the common terminology there. Your playing agent is going and finding new contracts and salaries for the sport with clubs and organisations for your on-field performance, and a marketing agent is going to be going out and helping you with your commercial deals. A big differentiator there to keep in mind is sport specific. There's a lot of the individual sports, your tennises and your golfs and things like that your marketing agent is a lot more important, because your play on the field is going to automatically kind of answer a lot of the questions and do a lot of the job as an agent. Around like getting into the next competition is going to be heavily dependent on your rank and things like that. So the playing agents do have value. I know a few like tennis agents, for example, that do certainly do their job, but the marketing piece is where you have a lot of leverage in those individual sports. Whereas in team sports like your footballs and your rugbies and basketballs, American football, etc., you do need the agent negotiating your salaries with the clubs. So to answer your question around getting an agent while you're still a student, particularly in the new landscape surrounding name, image and likeness, there's huge value in having a marketing agent. And then in the future, likely a playing agent too, to negotiate your rev sharing, your salaries with collectives and etc. So there is going to be value there. But yeah, if you're in college and you're cranking it and you're like, oh yeah, I want to jump on the circuit, and that often will mean leaving college to make up for it, or you might be studying on the side. Yeah, there's always a time to be having those conversations with agents. I would almost argue there's very few times you should not at least have a call with an agent and try to learn what they're all about.
Conversation's free, right?
100%. And yeah, actually, I've come across agents that charge for that.
No way.
A consultation, and so make sure they don't.
Mate, there's some recruitment agencies out there as well that do like $100 per consultation. No, like that's robbery.
No, I get like some lawyers and accountants and stuff do that, but to be frank, even I've worked with some great lawyers and accountants throughout my life, and they haven't. They give you a first couple of meetings free just to see if it's the right fit. So yeah, if they're charging you for that sort of stuff, I would automatically get a little bit defensive.
To wrap this podcast up, brother, what is one piece of advice that you could give a student athlete that's listening to this, watching this, thinking about going to America? You've done it. You've lived the journey. You've now met an amazing person, your partner. She's now here in New Zealand. She's from where? You're saying before to content Sam behind the camera.
Yeah.
From Las Vegas.
Las Vegas, Nevada. But she's Kiwi now. We'll claim her.
Let's go. What's some advice, man?
I think the biggest thing is just pin your ears back and go for the corner. It's funny enough, that was rugby advice that was given to me from my dad when I was really young. He used to always just say, just pin your ears back and go for the corner. and just hunt it down. And it's worked out really well throughout my life. And I think from going to college is the same example. That actually I might have 2 bits of advice for that's all right. Go for it is the first one. The second one is hang in there would be a big one. Being that far away from home can be really difficult. I know I mentioned earlier that I didn't get homesick, but you're a long way from home, and so there was times, I was sitting in the bank trying to open a bank account, and it was early in the morning, so my parents were still asleep, so I didn't have any help. You got to answer questions on your own. You got to figure it out. You're at the grocery store and you don't know what something is, so you're Googling it, and there's countless times where you just feel like you're out on your own. And it was so many times that I remember sitting there going, it'd be much easier if I was just back in New Zealand. Like, a citizen makes it a lot easier. But then when I look back on it and see the experiences that I've had, and look back on the last 15 years, it's just like, that was the best thing I could have ever done. And so sit in it. It's not always pretty. It's not always great, but it will be an incredible decision. And yeah, if you are getting homesick and everything, book a trip, but you've got to make the States your home. That's your home now, and that's fine. You get to have 2 homes, and now, for like you had mentioned, I'm able to be back down here with a beautiful partner. Met her over there. The States gave me that. Some of my best friends, my best friends are kind of all over there. My network's over there. I've got 2 homes. I'm really blessed to have 2 homes, and so hang in there would be my second bit. Pin your ears back and then hang in there.
Love that. Okay. I told you we're about to sign off, but one more question. Right. No, I have to ask this.
Yep.
Who's the most famous person in your contact list in your phone?
Oh, is this going to be your ongoing question?
Yeah. Oh, well, for you, yes, because I know you got the gold watch, bro. You got the hair slicked back, looking the part.
It depends. It's a funny one because for some reason athletes have never led me to be starstruck. Like, I remember I would have been 19 and working for the Rams, and I was in the gym with the team and things like that, and it never got me starstruck. But then there's some, like, the execs always got me starstruck. Like, I'd be in there and like the owners, Kevin Demoff or something walks into the gym, and I'm just like panicky. So I would say when I go into famous people, I start thinking about like senior executives and things like that. So I would need to go through my phone. I've seen these online. Is the next question, you're going to make me FaceTime them and see if they pick up?
Yeah, 100%.
I'm not going to do that.
No, I would never make you do that.
Yeah.
But no, seriously, let's go New Zealand. Let's go New Zealand sports star. Who's the famous person you got in your contact list?
Oh, there's, you know what? I'm going to go Ruben Love.
Oh, yeah.
He's a client of mine, so everyone needs to go follow Ruben. Engage in all his content. He's a legend. He's absolutely a legend.
Watch this man work, eh? Watch this man work.
Use Ruben Love, definitely. And that one, actually, I think he would answer. So yeah. I hope he would. So yeah, no, we'll go Ruben Love.
Yeah, cool. No, I appreciate that, man. Look, thank you so much. I know, like, obviously you've become a really good mate of mine, bro, and you're always sending me updates on the NCAA. I know you're heavily involved with what's happening in the US, and you're so engaged with it. And every time we talk and we have coffees, we keep saying we need to mic ourselves up. So I'm glad we're sitting here with these 2 microphones, and shout out to Content Sam behind the camera as well. But appreciate it, mate. I know there's a lot of athletes and parents that have been listening to this or watching this on YouTube. If you've got any questions, just send us a DM on Instagram. If you're interested in going to America, you can go to our website, platformsportsmanagement.com. /contact, and then just fill out the form, and my team and I will be in touch with you. And also shout out to the lads in Australia. We just opened a new office in Broadbeach, bro. Will's headed over there, so it's been a bit lonely in the Auckland office at the moment, but I think he's got a good tan, man. He's been in the gym as well.
I'm waiting for the invite to the Aussie office. Well, I think we need to do it'll be episode 3 for me on here, but episode 3 needs to be in the Aussie office, and I want the platform jet to take me over there. Oh, mate, one day. I might have to contact your execs from the Rams, but it's actually funny, bro. The first podcast we didn't even have an office. It was at my house. Yeah. The second podcast was here at our first office at Auckland, and the third podcast in the jet. The jet. Maybe if I hire you, man. Maybe if I hire you, you'll be able to get that. But anyway, thanks for watching, everyone. Stay tuned. We'll see you on the next episode.